Hey everyone, Paul Peasy here. I got a comment on one of my videos when I was talking about positions, and the guy asked me to go deeper into the positions, and I thought I would kind of do that for the backswing, and I want to give you a quite detailed explanation of what you might want to try to achieve in your backswing for that picture perfect backswing, which isn't 100% necessary, but it's good to have as close to a solid backswing as possible. The backswing's super important. So a good backswing is going to make it a lot easier for a good downswing. So that's why you see tour pros practicing their backswing so much. So positions are, I think, super important and super helpful. I mean, if you, they're basically, look, when you swing a club, it is a dynamic motion, right? And sometimes it can be quick. Sometimes some backswings are slow. But if you understand these positions, you can kind of hit them. They're kind of like waypoints. Like if you were driving somewhere and you needed to get somewhere, and you know, like for instance, when I used to drink, I could go from bar to bar to bar, and I could get anywhere I wanted to go. Anyway, no, they're just like, the positions are like waypoints, and you understand the positions, and then when you actually swing, you might go through those positions very quickly. But if you can practice those positions, it gives you a really good, it's a map for a good backswing. And if you can get a good backswing, and if you can get it on plane and get the club, the geometry right and get everything lined up, there's a really good chance that you're going to hit a straight shot or a good shot. So, over the years, I've watched a lot of stuff about backswings, and it's all pretty standard now. But I'm going to give you my knowledge of the backswing that has really kind of like, I can kind of like seal it all up into one. And I'm going to give you at the end, stay till the end, I'm going to give you the greatest backswing tip. Came from Rory McIlroy, and it's absolute genius, and it's awesome. So if you stay to the end, you can see that. All right, so first, we can kind of, I think the backswing is kind of like three parts to me. So there's the initial takeaway, and then there's the part where I call, and Rory mentioned it, as we set the structure of our arms. And then the third part is basically where we just turn to the top. And that's how I like to think of it. So, all right, so this is a tour ball, tour striker ball, but this is a cheap Chinese version. You can get these for like way cheaper on eBay. But, and I've seen Rory use this quite a lot. So we put this between our arms, right? And this is going to give us a really good takeaway. So the takeaway, now I got this mat here, right? And these mats are really good because whenever you get on a mat, make sure you have the geometry right there in front of you, okay? So everything's lined up with the mat. The feet, the knees, the hips, the shoulders. We're in a box. So everything is square to the box, whether perpendicular or parallel to the lines of the box. If we put this ball, and I saw Tiger actually talk about this too. He worked on this a lot with Butch Harmon. And that the initial takeaway, we want to keep our arms, like this right arm, more on top, okay? And what that does is, with the right arm on top, it keeps the club head a little outside our hands, and it gets our shoulders going a little more in a tilt, so we don't go too flat in the beginning with our shoulders. So that's obviously too flat. So the shoulders should pretty much point kind of here, somewhere past the ball. All right, so we put this between arms. And for the takeaway, we go like this. And we keep this right arm a little more on top. Now, at that point, the club shaft should be parallel to the target line. Some people get it a little inside the target line. It doesn't have to be perfect. Some people might still be a little out. But generally, a good guide would be for it to be parallel to the target line. Now, I like to see it kind of over my toes. That's pretty good. One thing you gotta be really careful of on the takeaway is that your hands do not go too far in, and especially do not go out. So the hands should go straight back. There was Rory had a tip from Jack Nicklaus. So Nicklaus said, pretend there's razor blades, and if your hands go out, you would cut them on the razor blade. So first position would be, boom, like that. And now this is pretty parallel to the target line. And one thing that you want to check for is the club head, this line here, this line, the club head. At that point, it should pretty much match your spine. Okay. Now, if you have a strong grip, in other words, if you have a strong grip where this hand's more on top, it may look a little more pointed towards the ground. And if you had a really weak grip, it might look a little more pointed towards the sky. But it should not point straight up, because that would mean that you rolled the face open. So first position, boom. So we turn parallel, kind of over the toes. And another thing I like to look for is, if I take it back, just look at this arm and look at that arm. And I like to see it kind of, and I've looked at a lot of players, so I like to see it pointing a little right of the target. So if I got here and it's kind of pointed that way to the left, then I think I probably got my arms too far out. So boom, and there, I like that. So that's kind of pointed either, you know, parallel to the target line. Obviously the target line is the line going through the ball to the target. That's good. So boom. And another thing too is very important is that this should be a moving of the chest. While there is some lifting of the hands, we want to keep, very important, we want to keep the hands in front of our chest. We don't want to do this. So now my chest is facing there and the club's over there. So basically on the backswing, the arms do not do a whole lot of this, if any. So the biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes, there are many, I see in backswings, is people who go like this. So if I pull my arms back, in other words, I pulled them across my chest, they've already left the center of my chest. So they haven't stayed in front of my chest. Basically on the backswing, as we turn, the arms simply just lift. That's all they do. So if I turn and I just lift as I turn, my hands are in front of my chest, my arms are away from my body. Once I do this and I pull my arms back, I've already narrowed. My hands are closer to my chest, too close. They're not only too narrow, they're too far behind me. They're too far to the side of my body. So when we turn, we want to keep our chest facing our hands. Now that would be, this would be one with the ball. Two would be basically, we need to get the club head to go up. The club head should start to go up. And the reason for that is we want to get this grip pointed either at the target line or slightly inside the target line. The second biggest fault I see in people's backswings is this. They get here, and at this point, the grip is pointed like at my golf bag. So it's gotten way too laid off or behind you. So we need to get the club head up and get this handle pointed at the target line or slightly inside the target line. A great thought is if there was a a laser light coming out of the grip, it would shine inside. It wouldn't shine out here, and it wouldn't shine in my bag. And I see a lot of people like here, and the thing would be shining the light on my golf bag. I want that light shining here. I want it to shine at the target line or slightly inside the target line. So for that to happen, once we do this, we have to start getting the club head up. We have to start levering the club. Lever it up, get it up. So, boom, boom. And now once we've done that, we're done. That's it. Watch this. So the greatest tip I ever got or ever heard on the backswing was Rory McIlroy. And he talked about getting his arm structure set early. So from there, he could basically just turn to the top. So once you get to this point and you've set the club and your hands are in front of your chest and you're wide, it's almost like if someone wrapped you in plaster, like put a plaster cast around you. And from there, you just turn. And it would mostly be the right shoulder going back. But as you do this, nothing changes. So now you remain wide and you're basically turning. Now, the reason that Rory gets the club so far back is because he's got such a huge turn. So I could never get the club back as far as Rory. But my club should stop about here. Now, does it? No. It's something I'm working on. So, a big problem is when, the shoulders stop and the arms keep going. So now I'm getting narrower. I don't want to get narrower. I want to stay wide. So the best way to understand it is first position with the ball, right? Ball. So I'm parallel to the target line. My arm gets from here. So when I set the club, actually, my arm's kind of parallel to the target line or inside, but I'm done. So I've set the club, and from here, you just turn and don't change anything. And now you're wide. So that's the best tip when I started doing that, I couldn't believe how much farther I started hitting the ball, and much higher too. So now, things to check for on the backswing is boom, parallel, boom, pointed at the target line or inside. And obviously at the top, we would want the club parallel to the target line again. Not everyone gets that. Some people are slightly laid off, where the club points to the left. Some people are crossed over, where it points to the right. But the closer you can get to being online is really helpful. So I think that's about it. But the most important thing on your backswing, without a doubt, is to remain wide. Now, it's something that I've always neglected because it's not easy. It's kind of painful. It really requires you to keep your arms away from your body and just keep turning. And if you just do what I said, where you think about setting this arm structure early, in other words, getting your wrist cocked at some point, and then just turning and keeping this whole thing like you're in a cast. So in other words, if I had a cast on my arm, I could not go like that, right? I couldn't hug the club. So that's really, and here's a good drill. So now I'll give you a good drill for that. So get here, set the club and grab it like this, right? And now just turn to the top. See? So that's it right there. And that's as far as your arm should go. They're wide. Any farther, and you're just getting narrower. So that's the backswing. And that's the, that's from the waist up, the positions, the ones you want to try and hit.
Sorry, folks. There was more to that video where I talk about the backswing in terms of starting from the ground and, the way that you dynamically create a backswing from the ground up. but my audio was really bad, so I had to delete that from the video. But please like, subscribe, comment, and I will certainly cover it in the future. And keep at it and get a good backswing, and the rest should come pretty well for you. Bye.